Alright, so back here on the 1978 Toyota pickup and working on the Hardline for the fuel system. So the big long one here is the return line, and so I already have that mostly in place. I've only mounted on the two ends here in order to get the pipe as high as possible. Because I notched the frame, I need to make sure to get that high. There's not really any chance for it to bottom out onto the frame itself. There'll be a bump stop there, but even so, I want to make sure to get the fuel line down below the notch, and so got it mounted on both sides just to hold that in place to make sure that everything's good, and just sort of loosely connected to the return to the fuel tank. I got the return running on the upper portion, so it'll run above the sending. And so the reason for that is I have all of this contraption here with the pre-filter, pump, and post-filter, and I just don't have enough room to run it underneath. I had to build tabs and everything in order to get those mounted is where they are, and I need to make sure to get the return above those things, and so that's why I started in the back with having it above the send. And then when I cut through these pieces here that go, these are the cab mounts on the rear, I just got some piece of fuel line that I put over the top of that to just help protect it when it goes through. Same thing on this side. Over here I actually had to drill out this hole. It wasn't quite big enough. The one on this side is gigantic, so I had plenty of room. But I had to drill this one out in order to make sure I had enough room. And then I'm just sort of mocking up where I have the return here. I haven't made this line yet, but it'll hook into the fuel pressure regulator. And so I'm pretty sure I'll end up hooking something like this, where the hard line will come in, and then I'll got the AN line with the 90, and then a little coupling to hook over to the fuel pressure regulator. On the fuel feed side, there's a banjo fitting here that just adapts from the standard banjo fitting that would have been on this fuel system to AN. And for this one, I'm not going to bother to run hardline in this little tiny section here. So it'll hook into the post filter, and then it'll just be an AN line that'll just go directly to the post filter. I just don't see the point of making a little tiny hard line and all that nonsense. So that one will be super easy. I won't have to have two pieces for that. But I'm working on the second piece of the hard line, so I do need to have another piece of hard line for the send side. And so I'll be going along basically underneath where the return is, and already have that roughed out here, and so already fit a piece of I guess this is transmission oil cooler, whatever, hose in order to kind of protect it when it has to go through those mounts, and just working on flaring both sides of it. So the way this works is the AN fittings are 37 degree, and so you got to hook in what looks like just basically like a compression fitting, or any other fitting, where you got a nut first and then a collet. Since it's hard line, you want to make sure to clean out the inside, and so you could use a reamer. Since it's 3/8, it's easy to get the reamer in there, and then I just use a little bit of sandpaper in order to just make sure that's as smooth and nice as possible. There is a bit of a trick to this that I found out the hard way. You don't want to flare these a whole lot. And so you could see like the actual die could make a giant, pretty big flare, but that big flare would never fit over the top. The nut would never fit over the top of a really big flare. So you actually just want to make a little tiny flare on the end of it. So take the die, 37 degree. So just loosely put that in, and then this just allows it to make sure everything's flush. And tighten that down and change it over to the appropriate 37-degree die. And again, we're just going to make a little tiny flare on this side, not real big. I did try to make a full flare, and that was a mess. And so just a little flare on the end, and then that collet sticks in there, and then that allows the nut to go by. If that flare is too big, and I might make that one just a little bit larger, if that flare is too big, then you go to slide this nut over the top of it and it won't go. So I might make that one a little bit larger, and then I got to do the other side. But you know, this is just order of operations. Make sure you get your collet and the nut on, transmission line, all those things in order to get that done. And then when I put this back on, so I can feed this through on this side. And then what I end up doing is I take clamps on all the spots where I know that I'm going to have to either set up a bend, or, you know, I have a specific spot that I know that I'm going to have to put, you know, a mount or something. And so what I end up doing is, to get that bend into place, is you can, you know, this 3/8 NiCop line is super soft, so you can really bend it by hand. But if you get a clamp on here to hold it in place where it needs to go, then you can just sort of push and get all those things lined up, and just, you know, clamp and clamp and push and clamp and push all the way down, and then it's not real complicated. So instead of, like, you know, trying to make, you know, like a wire line, and then, you know, using various benders, and I have benders, it's a lot easier to just clamp it in place where it'll end up being, and then these rubber pads will end up not crimping and smashing the line, and you can just sort of bend it in place as you're going through. And so when it's in the correct location, you have the bent line. There's no reason to do it twice and then rebend and all that other nonsense. You can just flare the ends, bolt it up, and then you're done. So I think I'll, you know, maybe add a little bit extra flare on that one, and then I got to flare the other side. But this is, you know, honestly not that bad. It's pretty easy. So, all right, thanks. See you in the next one.